Alright, so I'm going to be doing something different I haven't done before. I'm going to make a video on processing an astrophotography image that I have taken. I just recently got a Skywatcher Star Adventure tracker, which tracks the object that you're doing long exposures of in the night sky. Prior to that, I would just take very short exposures of objects, take 400 images, and then stack them all together. And it kind of worked, but definitely did not work out as well as me using a tracker. Even for the first time, I got better results. I just want to add that the moon was out and was very bright while I took these, but I just wanted to go out and test, practice polar alignment, and then I figured, hey, might as well try it and see how it works, and they came out very well, I feel like, for the moon being out and my first time. Alright, so here is my stacked image, straight out of Deep Sky Stacker. Upon inspection, it's like, maybe my focus was like a hair off. Or it could just be from stacking. My stars might not have been completely round. As I'm processing this image, I don't want to blow the core out while I'm trying to bring out all this hidden dust that's in here, especially the Running Man Nebula, which is right here. You can't really see it now, but by the end, it will be extremely prominent. We got our histogram over here. This is very important to look at while you're doing this. But, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this layer, which is Control J. Okay, so next, we're going to create a layer mask, and then click into the layer mask. So you hold Alt and then click, and then you paste. And as you can see, this is black and white. That's totally normal. Alright, so once that's pasted in there, we're going to hit Control I to invert. So now the black stuff is not going to be affected whenever we're bringing up the details and the brightness from the background, like in the gases. So we don't want the stars to get brighter. We definitely don't want this core to get blown out. Alright, so we're going to bring up the levels. We're going to bring a little bit of that core in, but not too much, just a hair. And then we're going to slide that over about like that. That looks good. Alright, so next you're going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and whoa, yeah, way too much. Say 4. 4 looks good. Hit OK. Alright, so after that's done, I'm going to click back to the original. So now we're going to do a stretch. So bring up your levels with Control L. And you want to take your midtone slider. Now this is going to look a little weird. The colors might get a little funky. You just want to go to about where this data spike starts, about right around there. You don't want to go too far. So I would say probably about right there. And you hit OK, and it no longer looks funky, so that's good. Alright, so I'm looking at this. It's not perfectly centered. So we're going to crop it. I'm not seeing too many, stacking artifacts. Like where the stars look real weird on the edges. They don't look too bad. Like a little, maybe a little, but overall it looks pretty good. But regardless, we wanna get this centered here. So, all right, now we're talking. All right, so now there's a little bit of vignetting here. It's not too bad. I did not take flat frames. I only took lights, bias, and dark. Add just a touch. You don't want to add, too much like that. That looks ridiculous. That looks pretty good, I think. Yeah, that looks a lot better. We're going to do levels again. And then we're just going to bring the darks in just a little. You don't want to go too far, because you won't get that information back once you clip it out. I'd say that looks pretty good there. You may also notice that this is kind of blue looking. It's like very cool temperature wise, like white balance. So you can go in here and play with your really what you want to do is look at the histogram. try to line everything up. You can also do this in Camera Raw. I prefer to do it in Camera Raw and just adjust it that way. But that looks pretty good. Good enough for me. We're going to create another star mask. Click into that. Alright. Invert it. Alright. So, your levels. Alright. And then go to blur, Gaussian blur. Blur it. Click back. So then we're going to do a curve stretch. Control M, bring up your curves. Now you can do this in a couple different ways. You can grab right here at the data spike where it intersects, and you can drag it up like that. You don't want to go too far. You don't want there to be a straight line at the top. You can do it like that, or you can grab the little finger and click and drag what exactly you want to bring out. So say I want to bring out the Running Man Nebula. You can click in there, bring that up. It's going to bring out that specific shade, which is all over the picture, mind you. But you can bring that out, and then you can click in the dark areas, bring them down just a touch. Alright, so we made a new stamp layer. Now we're going to do a levels adjustment. Bring the darks in. This is still a little too blue, I feel, but we will fix that. Try to fix it at least in Camera Raw at the end where we do our final touch-up. So next, we are going to remove the stars. So we are going to save this as a TIFF. Alright, so that's saved. So now we are going to open it up in StarNet++ and name the output Take 2 Starless and just hit run. This might take a couple minutes. Okay, so that's done. And close out of that. We can open it up. So here's our starless image. Now some of these spots down here are a little bit funky. So you can take your spot healing brush, kind of just play around with it a little bit until it looks half decent. Just try to get some of those blobs out of there. Yeah, okay, that looks pretty good. That one, see, that looks bad. You definitely don't want it to look like that. You can try to increase the brush size. This one here might be a lost cause. I don't think we're going to be able to make this one look normal, but that's okay. I'm going to flatten everything because I feel like this looks pretty good. Alright, so we are going to duplicate that. Call it stars only. Alright, so then we're going to go to apply image, source, take 2 starless, blending, subtract. Make sure your scale is at 1 and your offset is at 2. And then hit OK. Alright, so stars only. We've got some fringing going on here where there's the purple around the star and the brown. So we are going to fix that. So we go to filter, Camera Raw filter. And then you want to zoom in. Go down to defringe. Purple amount. And just kind of go like that. And then for these brown ones here, slide this all the way over. So we gotta slide that over too. That looks pretty good. So next, I want to shrink these stars a little bit. So we can go to select, color range, highlights. So turn the fuzziness up and the range down. Don't want to do this. Don't even want to do that because you can see all those spot healing imperfections in there, especially. So you just want to get most of them, but you don't want to grab anything unnecessary also. So I would say probably around there. Alright, so those are selected, but we want to expand that by 2 pixels. And then we want to feather our selection by half of that, which is 1. So that looks good. So then hit Control H and hide that. They're still selected, it's just hidden. So now go here, other, minimum. So you don't want to go too crazy with this because it can look really bad like that. So I'm going to go with 3.1. I think that looks half decent. So then we're going to go back over to this, and we're going to modify this. So let's bring up, well, first of all, copy the layer, and bring up curves, Control M. Take your little dropper. Then now you can just, you know, bring out some stuff you want to bring out and some stuff you don't want to bring out. So we can try to make the background a little bit darker, but not too much because that looks horrible. So I'd say probably about there. And then the core is definitely just blowing out at this point. It's probably just a lost cause at this point. I don't really know what else to really do about that. I think that looks pretty good. So hit OK. Yeah, see, I feel like that looks a lot better. So we're going to go with that. Alright, so I'm going to open this with Camera Raw and see if I can just help it out a little bit. So first things first, I'd bring up the clarity. Usually I start around like 25. Usually 25 is good. Bring your dehaze maybe a little bit too. Don't go too much, obviously. Just a little bit. Don't touch the texture unless you want to make it look like that. I mean, it's up to you. Now, I'm going to adjust the vibrance and saturation. I would probably start with the vibrance. See, now that looks pretty cool. So now we can play with everything else. So this core is just too far gone, I feel like. I would say leaving it probably about there. Maybe like raising it up a little bit to just kind of like make it look a little bit more natural at this point. These little dots and stuff in here are from the StarNet program removing the stars, so that's okay. I mean, it's whatever. But, so this is what I was saying before about adjusting your white balance in Camera Raw. You can make it like real blue like how it was before, which you don't really want. You don't want to go too far and make it look super warm either. I would say right there looks good. But you can play with just about anything in here. I mean, obviously you don't want to make it insane, but yeah, try to bring out some of this gas in here. The noise, you can see there's a lot of color noise in here, so if you turn your color noise reduction up, it'll get rid of the color noise entirely. As for actual noise reduction, it's honestly up to you. I most certainly would not go to 100, because, I mean, unless you're trying to make it look like a painting, then by all means do it. I would honestly, in my opinion, I wouldn't go any more than like 20. Because 20 does a pretty good job without taking out too much detail. I'm going to go with 17, though. So, you don't want to touch any of this stuff down here. You can play with the curve a little bit in here, make the core look a little bit more. Yeah, see, that looks pretty good. The lights. Yeah, that actually looks pretty good. Yeah, that looks good right there, I feel like. So in your darks, What I like to do is like turn the darks up and the shadows down, see how that looks. Then turn the shadows up and the darks down and see how that looks. Honestly, I don't like either of them. So I'm gonna say... I'm gonna say that looks half decent. So next I'm going to make a mask with a brush, and I'm just gonna adjust some certain areas. So I want to bring the Running Man Nebula out a little bit, so you can just throw like a little bit of a highlight on it, like so. You don't want to make it look unnatural, but throw a little bit of highlight, maybe mess with the contrast a little bit. I wouldn't really mess with the exposure because that kind of makes it look funky. You can turn it up like a hair, not too much. Try, I wouldn't mess with the blacks. I wouldn't mess with the shadows much either. Maybe just a touch. You can turn the saturation up on it because it's very blue, so you can make it look more blue without affecting the rest of the image. Turn it down a little bit. Yeah, there we go. That looks pretty good. So then you can do the same thing with the Orion Nebula itself. So say I want to bring, what is this, M41? Bring that out more. So, oops, gray mask. Just bring that out like a touch without blowing it out, obviously. Turn the clarity up a little bit, maybe. Just a little bit. Maybe turn the saturation up just like a touch. I think I want to turn the clarity up on the Running Man also. Really brings that out. So then another thing you can do, it's gonna look weird and I'll adjust it after, but you can just kind of hit your clarity on like this like spare dust in here. So we're not gonna leave it at that, obviously. Take it back down and then kind of just find the point where it looks good, but it's not ruining anything else. I'd say probably about there. And then maybe try to go in here a little. Yeah. So that looks pretty good. Alright. So I think we're done in here. Maybe mess with this a little bit. I definitely want there to be more pink and not blue. So a way you could do that is go down here. You might be able to bring out some of this. Yeah, a little. There we go. Yeah, that looks really good. So I think we're good here. So you can hit OK. There's our before and after. That's why I like to go into Camera Raw and make some adjustments in there, because you can really fine-tune everything just the way you want it. What we're going to do now is we are going to take our stars, select them, copy, paste them on top, go to blending options, and go to screen. So now our stars are back, and we've got this real nice smooth looking gas in here. So I know we already made the stars smaller, but I'm going to make them a little bit brighter. This core in here just looks funky. So there we go. As for these here, those are those 3 stars in the nebula itself. Could try to make those brighter. I see there's an orb around them. Hopefully that doesn't affect anything. Nope. I mean, if you really zoom in on it, but that looks pretty good. So we're gonna do one final adjustment on everything. So we're going to go into camera raw again. So first thing I'm noticing is it's still like too blue and almost green. So we're going to bring a... You can look at your histogram and try to line it up to where it looks good. Save. Yeah, that looks pretty good. That looks good there. So we do have some vignetting. Opposite vignetting going on, actually, now. So maybe try to... don't want to go too far. That is good enough for me, personally. Alright. I am content with that. I think that looks pretty good. So there you have it. That is my first image ever taken with a sky tracker, specifically the Sky Watcher Star Adventurer. I originally went out because it was the first clear night we've had in like over 2 weeks. So I originally just went out to get some practice with the polar aligning and stuff like that, and then I was kind of just curious to see how well it worked. The moon was out, very bright, washing out the sky, but it was fairly far away from Orion, so I was like, well, I'll try it on the Orion Nebula and see how well it works. I'm curious to see how well I can track an object with, you know, at 600mm focal length, because I've been hearing a lot of people saying that it's really not possible. Well, I was very astounded to see that it worked very well. I mean, I wasn't doing very long exposures, obviously. I think I tried a minute exposure at first, and it looked okay, but after like 5 pictures, some of them were like very slightly trailed, so I just bumped the exposure time down to like 40 seconds, I believe. And then I just took 40 pictures and then stacked them, and I believe there were 25 dark frames, and there were, I believe, 50 bias frames and 0 flat frames. So yeah, I'm very happy with this. I'm very excited to, you know, continue using my gear and getting better. I feel like for my first ever image with a sky tracker, this turned out pretty awesome. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I guess whenever I, you know, actually get another clear night, which is very rare here in Pennsylvania, I will be out there finding my next target. But yeah, till then, catch you later.